In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Stevens, your host of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm here with my dog, Finley, and she is napped out right now, which is really great, but she's my color commentator. But we'll put her in the room here in just a moment. Today, my guest is Sande Golgart, and Sande lives up in Washington, D.C., isn't it?
It's Seattle, Washington.
Seattle,
The other
Washington. I'm
Washington.
sorry. I meant Seattle, Washington. I was
That's all right.
thinking up there, but I was saying DC because I'm going to DC. I just booked a trip a little while ago, so that was in my mind. But no, Seattle, Washington. And actually, Sande was just in Austin this last weekend and we missed each other. He was at the biohacking conference. I had several friends there and they just said it was amazing. Sande, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell people what you do. We had a great talk the other day setting this up, but a moment ago, you were just rattling off some things. I was like, I wish we had the recording going at that time. So tell people who you are, what you do, and let's talk. When we talk in there, I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. And anytime we get to talk about an inspired or expansive life, like I just light up. So I appreciate the opportunity. My story, I think, is best understood if I go all the way back to just being a kid. And for me, I had these visions when I would sleep in my dreams about flying. And it triggered something inside of me that was a feeling that like nothing else I'd felt, like leaving the ground and floating, not coming down. And that just like really hit home with me. It was this feeling of bliss. And when I was a teenager, I was watching TV and popped in a VHS tape, and Michael Jordan's Come Fly With Me was the tape that I was watching. And it felt to me like literally a personal invitation to come fly with him. And it triggered something that I look back on. And this is the reason I start with this part of the story as my first taste of inspired action, where I felt like that's exactly what I want to do. I want to fly like Michael Jordan. And that triggered a response internally with me where I would do 1,400 toe raises every single night. I had 14 stairs in my house that went from my base floor to our middle floor in our house. I would do 100 toe raises on every step. I'd get to the top. I would jump around. We had 9-foot ceilings. My fingerprints were on every square inch of those ceilings. Just really inspired to want to be able to leave the ground the way Michael Jordan would and fly for that little bit of time. And through that, I then became the state high jump champion, set a record over 7 feet. And then I went on to win the National Slam Dunk Contest in Lubbock, Texas. And at that point in my life, I didn't know it, but that was my first taste of that inspired action when you're quiet, you're really in touch with the way you feel, and you get triggered by something so amazing that it's not work, it's not willpower taking you somewhere, it's your inspiration. And so I got inspired. I just focused on the work. I didn't go around entering contests. They found me. They pulled me out of the crowd. I was in my street clothes. I ended up winning the National Slam Dunk Contest. Went on to play college basketball at the University of Colorado. Signed up to go down to Sao Paulo, Brazil to play professional basketball when I blew my knee out backcountry skiing in the Continental Divide. And that was the first time my other reality really shifted and said, basketball is no longer in the cards. Now what do you got? And I'd never given any real thought to what I wanted to do. I'd never had that inspired moment. So I went with what I had, and I just knew I want to be quote unquote successful. The only thing I knew from athletics was you size up the competition, you try and outwork everybody, you get noticed, and you get promoted. So I did that for 30 years in the corporate world. And by several different measures, I could make the argument that it was successful. I had all the titles, stock options, and good salaries and all that stuff. But I found myself about the age of 47, I'm 52 now, feeling this somewhat empty feeling that I think everyone has in the pit of their stomach, that I wasn't sure if I had really lived an expansive life. I knew that I could look at it a number of different ways and I could choose to say, yeah, it was great. But there was something really tugging at me saying, there's more in here. And this is at a time where I was really starting to doubt what my next step would be. Would anybody want to hire a high-priced executive with all these kids learning all these amazing tools? And I was just feeling and wondering and fearful that I might be nudging into that realm of no longer relevant. So I'm thinking to myself, am I ready to put my landing gear down, or do I have more in the tank? And for whatever reason, I just started to clean up my diet a lot through COVID. That led to me no longer drinking alcohol, starting to meditate, do breath work, and all these little tiny changes that just felt right. They just felt like there's some reason you're doing this. And I just kept going with it, and I kept experimenting, and the experimentation got more and more fun. And I felt myself being awakened with inspiration. I started pouring through all the different books. I read a bunch of Deepak Chopra early on. And in one of his books, The 7 Laws of Spiritual Success, which I've read probably a dozen times, every time it feels like a brand new book to me because I'm changing. The book's exactly the same, but I'm getting so much more and so much different information from it. But in my first pass through it, goal setting, the way he talks about having an expansive life really hit home with me, where you're not chasing things, but you're really defining, how do I want to experience life? What do I want to feel? What do I want to feel? What do I want to experience? And I wrote down very seriously what was coming to me. And that was, I wanted to redefine wealth as being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it with minimal effort. If I could do that, money would certainly most likely be a component of it, but that felt freeing to me. Also, I wanted to experience unconditional love. Like, it was something that I felt was missing, that I later found out really just means you don't unconditionally love yourself. So we're always introduced to people and circumstances in our lives that show us where we're not free. And my marriage at the time, we were at a point where it was becoming noticeable that for us to be our true selves, we were going to need to go in separate ways. But through that process, I really started to realize it wasn't anything about her, my wife at the time, it was myself. And I had to grow and become more aligned as a human being to fall more deeply in love with not only myself for who I am, but all those things, all the icky parts, the things that I thought I needed to change. And I went through that process, and that has just continued to be an amazing part of this journey, if not the most amazing and most important part of it. Because inside of that, I started to realize that we don't have any problems. It's our relationship to circumstances in our lives that create perceived problems. And so while I was feeling stuck, I was feeling scared, I was feeling like I was lacking this unconditional love, all of those things were really my relationship to circumstances that were going on in my life. And to watch that and experience the unfolding of all that interference and friction to get to a place where it's so easy now to love yourself, all the parts about yourself that make you amazing, and then watch as amazing stuff starts happening to you as your frequency, your vibration for loving yourself starts to go up. And so I've committed myself to finding out what's required, what are the steps for a true awakening, and can I experience that, document it, and help people so that they can understand these teachings that have gone on for thousands of years. There was one quote in this journey that hit me, like pierced right through my heart. And it was a Rumi quote that says, "When I chase what I think that I want, my life becomes a furnace of stress and anxiety." And that's exactly where I was, chasing money, titles, things I thought would make me feel more fulfilled. The quote goes on to say, "When I sit in silence, I realize that what I really want also wants me. It's looking for me and will find me." And I had no idea what that meant, but I was certain I was going to figure it out. And so I've dedicated myself to finding quotes like that, or Buddhist quotes that say, "When you learn to do nothing, you'll learn to do everything." Wow, that sounds so cool, but what does it mean? So I've wanted to put those things into practice. I wanted to experience them fully, take notes, document the journey so that I can eventually share that with people, because I think we all have had those moments where something hit us. It sounds great. It makes our heart flutter a little, but then real life is there. Our fears, our relationship to our circumstances make us feel like that was probably good 2,000 years ago, but no way could that work in today's world. And I just simply wanted to find out if that was true or not. And could I just fully dedicate myself without a safety net and really experience it and blaze a trail, I thought, but I've since learned there are thousands of people doing this very same thing, and see if I can't share some of that. That helped me really find my true calling, which is happiness and freedom, where we can free ourselves up to be happy. Happy is the precursor to frequency vibration, which is the precursor to manifesting whatever it is that you want. And getting that right and getting the order right is part of why I work so hard with people and companies on intelligently designing your life around what you truly want so that you can achieve happiness first. Then your thoughts, your feelings will trigger inspired action, which before you know it, you'll be waking up doing exactly what you want to do. You'll have more energy to do it, and you'll be making a true difference in yourself, which helps you show up better for the rest of the world. And so in that, I became also fascinated with finding your dharma. How does that really work? What's the true power of inaction? And we live in a world that's just constantly telling us, you got to do, life sucks, it's hard, get over it, and keep grinding. You'll only grind yourself through it, and it's supposed to suck. And I've just never bought into that. It's always hit me like this visceral reaction that there's no way we were put here to suffer and to feel all this disease, and be okay with that. Like, this, to me, Earth is the most amazing playground in the universe. It's certainly the one that we have to cherish the most. It's our biggest opportunity. And I would never show up to a playground as a kid and start wondering, how do I protect all my assets? Where can I get some insurance? How do I hide under the slide so nobody gets my stuff? And how do I be careful of who I interact with? When we're a kid, we just show up and have as much fun as possible. You don't see color or anything gender on the playground. You just see a lot of people who want to have fun like you. And that, to me, is a mirror of energy. And when we realize that we are energy, life becomes just this much more amazing experience.
Yeah. You were talking about the transformation from the corporate world over to what you're doing now. So I do want to talk about what you're specifically doing, because you talked about some of the things you're doing. What are you doing for organizations? But before that, you're talking about what fulfilled you back then was trying to find those things. What fulfills you today?
Learning. I have just become passionately curious, or tapped into that passionately curious side of me that's always been there. And I love finding out for myself what works, why it works, realizing that there's nothing like the present. In fact, there's only the present. When I started to really understand the concept of time, that there's no such thing as the past. There's no such thing as the future. There's only right now. We only experience the illusion of the past and the illusion of the future in the present. So learning that alone is just the most amazing thing I can think of.
Yeah.
And learning how to put the power of inaction into action and seeing all the benefits of that, and learning how to access happiness. I just got back from a 10-day trip in Bali where I went back with a meditation coach, some energy healers, and a priest. Had the most amazing day, and they taught me this unbelievable meditation to help me draw more intention into what I was doing, get more into my body, actually follow my breath all the way into my body, and eventually get to a place where you can let your breath enter into your heart cavity and allow your heart to open. And while I was at the biohacking conference, there were tools where I could measure how effective this was. And the coherence from your brain actually only exists within a couple of inches outside of your brain. But your heart, when you start to learn to live from your heart, is very expansive. And you can impact people within 4 or 5 feet of you just by being around you. And so I was doing this meditation with some of the people, at the conference, and just asking them with their intention, how do you want to feel? I would hold their hand, go through this meditation, and they could feel this massive rush of happiness. And just to know that's possible, that to me is everything I think we as human beings want to experience. And to have tapped into some level of that is the most inspiring thing that I've ever interacted with, far more than being able to leave the ground and fly for a brief moment. To watch another human being have a smile come over their face and realize that life's amazing right here, right now, that's the most inspiring thing I think I've ever encountered.
That's great. You quoted a book, told us about a book by Deepak Chopra. So
Yeah.
the Seven
Spiritual Laws of Success.
Of Success. Okay. Yeah. When you said you read it a dozen times and each time it showed up different for you, that's the way I was around the book Awareness by Anthony DeMello. I read it every 6 months, and my growth was, oh my gosh, this doesn't even seem like the same book, because I saw things from a different lens 6 months later. Again, 6 months later. I love books like that. And I also find that books find me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not me finding a book. They usually reach out and grab me somehow. Yeah.
Which all comes down to leading a more expansive life. I've run into some of the most amazing people. They'll mention one thing. I signed up for these events through Jesse Itzler's Adventure Club, and our coach, an endurance Ironman coach, Chris Hoth, in our very first conversation said, you would really enjoy this book called The Lion Hunter's Guide to Life. And I was like, I feel that. I'm going to read it. And I've now read it a half a dozen times. I just got introduced to it back in October, maybe even November. But it talks about everything that I just tried my best to summarize is in the credo of a lion tracker. So a lion tracker's kind of mantra is, I have no idea where I'm going, but I know exactly how I'm going to get there. And it's all about awareness, paying attention to being right where your feet are, taking in everything. A really good, well-trained lion tracker can tell if the lion print, by looking at it, really feeling it, what animals passed through before the lion. Was the lion stressed? Was he looking for food? Was he relaxed? Was he going to the watering hole? All these things from a footprint, which give you a really good indication of where to look for the next track. And if you think about that and apply it to your own life, to me, it just became this amazing metaphor for just be fully present, be right where your feet are, get the most out of it, and it'll probably give you a good indication of where you need to go next, which is where those books show up.
Yeah. Now, Sandy, have you heard of Michael Singer?
Oh, yeah.
I love his work. It's right, everything you're talking about, like letting go of your attachment, and it's only bothering you because you're attached to it now. What happens if you let that go? It's so beautiful, and it's so spot on, because the vibration we grasp onto, the
Yeah.
dramatic things we try to create in our lives that don't bring happiness, that bring fear, that show up in a different way. But if you take your consciousness and you focus on the things that are uplifting to you, that are to manifest, to look at those things, everything can change. So walk me through how people find you and what you do with individuals or organizations. Tell us a little about
Yeah.
what you're doing now.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on Michael Singer really quick if I
Oh yeah,
can.
please.
And that is, he issued this great challenge in his book, The Untethered Soul, where he said that the key to happiness is answering one question, and you can't put any conditions on it. Do you want to be happy? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, you can't put any conditions on it. And
Yeah.
that really forces you to think, okay, it can't be yes when, yes if,
Right.
yes once, just yes or no. And when you commit in that way, then you realize it really is your relationship with circumstances that impacts you, nothing else. Life doesn't happen to you, it just happens. And so that helped me a ton. So, where do I help people? I help people all the time in finding the happiness that exists inside of them by removing the things that are interfering with that. And most of the time, that is simply the conversation that you're having with yourself in your head. And it usually stems from somewhere early in your life where you were told something, you observed something, you felt something, and that contributed to the story, might have set you on a path where you're now a victim of everything. And things are always happening to you, and you don't have good luck, or which no matter what story you're telling yourself, it's a lie. I just believe you might as well tell yourself a good one if you're going to tell yourself one. But when you realize and you embody the fact that you are an amazing spiritual being having this human experience, vitality is dying to flow through you, and the only thing you can do is put interference in the way of that happening. You realize, I just need to keep stripping away and let this amazing person, me, emerge from that. And then you find real power, real strength, and you'll find your true calling, what your soul was put here to actually do and recognize. So I help people do that all the time. I help people with the meditation find happiness. But where that comes into play for people in their personal lives and in the corporate world, if you understand, if you accept the invitation to think about the fact that happiness is the precursor to everything else, you will never chase anything and find happiness at the end of it. So if you find happiness first, you'll start to realize that reality is what it is. The present is all that we have. And you get to this place where you realize life is actually amazing. If you're waiting for it or you've put conditions on it, you are creating this furnace of stress and anxiety. And it's a very difficult trap to ever work your way out of, because you always feel like the answer is out there. And when you realize that people and circumstances are always put in front of you to show you where you're not free, everything becomes an opportunity. Everything becomes an opportunity to challenge yourself and find out what's here for me. What can I learn from this? And that just creates this, it ignites this curiosity to find out in the game of life where you're stuck. What's holding me back? What is trapped in my mental conversation that is either keeping more of the right customers from coming through the front door? What's keeping more money from entering into my bank account? What's keeping me from doing the type of work? What's sapping me from my energy? All of those things. And so when you get that, imagine the way a corporation would function if people understood that happiness comes before anything else. Okay. There wouldn't, You wouldn't need a pizza party to try to boost morale. People would be having amazing lives, doing incredible work by being totally present with what's right in front of them, allowing them to contribute to the mission of the company, which hopefully is founded in something that provides help. So I work with companies, and I'm pretty good at filtering out the types of companies that I work for. If they're not doing good in the world, then they're not a good candidate for me. But most people, by and large, have a good mission, a good purpose, a good intention. It's just gotten skewed because they're chasing growth. They're chasing a bigger number. They're chasing success. So once you re-engineer and intelligently design the way groups of people interact with each other around a core mission, they will become happy, fully engaged employees, willing and wanting to do inspired action every single day. And that company is going to thrive far beyond what a company of built off of manipulation and other things is ever going to be able to do.
Very true. As you were saying that, I kept thinking of this quote I have on one of my programs, and it's, don't trip over something behind you.
Yeah.
Because what gets in your way, looking in the past, looking in the future, like you said, not being present. The present is the present. It's the gift to us. But being able to do that, we've been so programmed for so long, it's very hard to open our eyes to that.
And not only that, but the power of the ego is so unbelievably powerful.
Yep.
But you realize you're actually the one in control of it.
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to dissolve it. And that you can do that by letting go of your identity, all the things that you think make you who you are, and slowly start re-engineering. But that's where my one-to-one coaching with executives and people within the companies comes into play. As basic, like we can talk here and it sounds easy and it sounds fun. It's hard. You get to a place where you're like, I just feel this anxiety, like I have to do something. Right. And that's where I'll help people find that story that they've been telling themselves. Where did it come from where they learned they weren't enough? Something told them along the way that they weren't enough being who they are. So they're constantly trying to do a lot of things to prove to themselves that they're of value. And that's a fool's errand.
Yep.
And once you just dissolve that and realize I'm enough, like I'm everything I need to be, doesn't mean I'm just going to sit on my couch and do nothing and be apathetic, because that's not me at my core either. I just want to get back in touch, fall in love with all the things that I don't do as well as other people, stop comparing myself to other people, and start bringing to the table the things I'm incredibly good at, showing up in a way that allows me to contribute, and your life will take off. You'll have an amazing experience from here until the end, and you can start it anytime you want. Yeah. But then imagine you have 1,000 employees. What if 1,000? What if 800 out of the 1,000 felt that way? How good would your results be?
Yeah, it's interesting as you were saying that, you're talking about ego. And John Maxwell, I think, said, ego is a terrible master, is an excellent servant. And where do you put that? Are you over it, or is it over you? And most, if we're unconscious about it, it runs us. And I think it's so interesting that we battle with that story we've told ourselves. I remember I went through a program with Landmark Education. It was their advanced course. And I did this back in 1996. And I gave up my story about myself. And I didn't know how much it had run me. And it was just a part of me. But they have an exercise that allowed us to let it go. It was interesting. About 5 years later, someone was going through the advanced course, and they asked me, well, what was your story? I couldn't remember. It was just gone. And that's so interesting. When you live in the moment, I forget a lot of my past now because I'm in the moment and I'm not thinking about what happened yesterday or the day before, or anything else like I used to. I've let those things go, and I've got an idea of where I want to go, but that's not as much as what I want to do today. Yeah. Sandy, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you?
Probably the two best places would be my website is just sandegolgart.com is the best place to get in touch with me. You can schedule a free consultation and just explore what it is that somebody, thinks that they want and get a really good, clear idea of what that is and whether or not I can help them or not. I'm also on LinkedIn at Sande Golgart and on Instagram at Sande Golgart. I'm fortunate I'm one of 8 billion Sande Golgarts. There isn't another one.
Yeah, there's also, if you're just listening, the spelling is Sande, and Golgart is Golgart, just like it's spelled. So sandegolgart.com. Yeah.
I also have to ask you a question that's just burning. I should probably wait till we're done.
No, please.
That painting behind you, is that a Shay Davis painting?
I don't know who Shay Davis is.
He's a friend of mine, a roommate from Colorado. It looks like it's like a person above the water.
It's actually, yeah, a friend of mine gave me that, my friend Matt Jones. He gave it to me, goes, what does that look like to you? It was on my birthday. I said, I loved it. I said, I guess it looks like Christ reaching down after I've been baptized. And he said, Greg, when I saw it, I thought of you helping people out from underneath. He said, I want you to put it in your background. And always when you're on a Zoom call working with people, that should be in the back of your mind. How can I help people from underneath? And I found out later it's a picture of, I don't know who the artist is, but it's supposed to be a picture of Christ reaching down to Peter. But it's so funny because I'll be teaching classes or having groups. Some people go, hey man, who's the surfer? And I say, you've got surf on your hat and everything.
Yeah.
That's what I love about art. Also, it says so many different things to so many different people, but it's been a great conversation starter for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful painting.
No, thank you so much. And Sandy, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I would definitely want to consider having you on again, because I think it would just be amazing to have you be a guest again at some point. I'm going to let Finley come back in here. Right. There she is. She's wide awake now.
Waking up. The awakening.
I know. But I want to say, everyone, thank you for watching another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm Greg Stevens, your host, and Finley is my sidekick. If you'll like and subscribe, it'll help us expand our reach. And Sandy, again, thank you so much for being a part of our guests on our show today and your message to our audience. I found great value in it. Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoy the opportunity to talk about these subjects, and it's been a blast. So thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. And everyone, see you next time on A Shot of Inspiration. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.